Canada's unexpected response to Trump's trade policies has sent shockwaves through the global economic landscape, leaving the U.S. administration completely blindsided. Why didn't the U.S. anticipate Canada's countermove? What happens when a major trade partner decides to strike back at the world's largest economy? This scenario unfolded when Canada made a bold move that defied expectations, catching the Trump administration off guard. With trade relations worth over $800 billion annually between the U.S. and Canada, even the slightest disruption in this relationship could have far-reaching consequences. However, instead of backing down, Canada stood firm, imposing retaliatory tariffs, diversifying its trade relationships, and strengthening its ties with the European Union. Canada made it clear that it was determined to protect its economic interests. So, what led to this surprising response? Why was the U.S. so unprepared for Canada's actions, and what does it mean for the global economy? Over the past month, the Trump administration has aggressively pursued trade policies, particularly targeting Canada and the European Union by imposing hefty tariffs on imports. Trump's goal was to shield American industries from foreign competition. However, this strategy triggered a backlash from some of the United States' most crucial economic allies. Experts have raised concerns about the ripple effects of these policies, warning that they could disrupt critical supply chains, inflate fuel and consumer prices, and ultimately harm both Canadian and American businesses and consumers. For the average consumer, the consequences are already being felt: higher fuel prices, increased production costs, and an increasing risk of job losses. What's even more concerning is the potential for these economic tensions to escalate into a broader trade war, with long-lasting effects on global economies. But why would the Trump administration risk such escalation? Did they underestimate Canada's response? Canada, however, wasn't about to back down. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau swiftly condemned the U.S. tariffs, calling them completely unjustified, and warned that these actions could harm both nations. In a calculated and timely response, Canada imposed retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods of equal value, targeting vital industries such as steel and aluminum, along with critical agricultural products like beef, dairy, and fresh produce. However, that was just the beginning. Canada knew it needed to take additional steps to protect its economic interests. It aggressively pursued new trade partnerships, signing agreements with European and Asian nations like Indonesia and Ecuador, reducing its reliance on the U.S. market. This shift not only fortified Canada's economy, but also placed the U.S. in a precarious position, potentially losing a key trade partner right at its doorstep. But Canada didn't stop there. In a move that could shift the global balance of power in critical industries, Canada, in collaboration with the European Union, formed a strategic minerals alliance. This partnership directly challenges China's dominance in the global minerals market. Canada and the EU have united to secure a stable supply chain for strategic minerals such as lithium, cobalt, and nickel, materials vital for the production of electric vehicle batteries, renewable energy, and high-tech industries. Currently, China controls more than 90% of the global supply of these minerals. But by forging this alliance, Canada and the EU are working to create an independent supply chain, reducing reliance on Beijing. This shift not only strengthens the economic security of both regions, but also sends a strong message to the U.S. Without a comprehensive and forward-thinking trade strategy, Washington risks being sidelined in the global race for the future energy industry. Meanwhile, Europe, which has also been grappling with the unpredictability of the Trump administration's foreign policies, has become increasingly concerned about its relationship with the U.S. After the U.S. engaged in secret negotiations with Russia over Ukraine without involving its European allies, many nations in the EU felt sidelined and disrespected. This diplomatic snub has prompted Europe to seek greater military independence from the U.S., reducing its reliance on NATO's U.S.-led command. Countries like France have made significant moves to bolster their defense strategies, increasing military cooperation and boosting defense spending. Together with Canada, the EU is reshaping the global strategic landscape, one that is increasingly less dependent on Washington's leadership. Now, let's examine how these developments might impact one of the most transformative sectors of the modern economy: electric vehicles, EVs. Canada's proposal to impose a 100% tariff on Tesla electric vehicles could have far-reaching implications for the global EV market, particularly for US-based companies like Tesla. This decision isn't just about trade retaliation. It's about reshaping the dynamics of international trade and competition in the electric vehicle sector. Canada is taking significant steps to protect its domestic electric vehicle (EV) industry, while pushing for a clean, sustainable economy. However, if tariffs are enforced, the price of Tesla vehicles in Canada could skyrocket, making EVs unaffordable for many Canadians. Yet the implications of this policy extend far beyond Canada. Tesla, despite having factories in the US and China, relies heavily on parts imported from China. Should the US also impose tariffs on these Chinese-made components, Tesla would be burdened with tariffs from both sides, the US and Canada. This double jeopardy could significantly increase production costs, slow innovation, and raise prices, ultimately hurting both consumers and businesses across North America. This policy shift wouldn't only affect Tesla. It could disrupt the entire North American EV industry. Companies like Ford and General Motors, which depend on parts from China to produce their electric vehicles, would also face higher production costs. If these costs are passed on to consumers, it could dampen the momentum of the global transition to electric vehicles, a critical step in reducing global CO2 emissions. EVs are central to both U.S. and Canadian environmental strategies, and any price increase could hinder the adoption of clean energy solutions. If this trade dispute escalates, the North American EV sector could struggle, and the global push toward electric vehicles could slow. However, there is an opportunity here. If both the U.S. and Canada can find a way to de-escalate tensions, the North American EV industry could benefit. Reducing tariffs and resolving trade disputes would stabilize the supply chain, lower EV prices, and accelerate the transition to clean energy. Such a resolution would not only benefit the EV sector, but also strengthen the global effort to combat climate change and build a sustainable economy. On a more personal level, the trade dispute took a turn in December 2024, when President Trump made a controversial statement suggesting that Canada could become the 51st state. His remarks were not taken lightly. They were seen as a serious insult to Canada's sovereignty. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and other leaders swiftly rejected the idea, making it clear that Canada would not join the U.S. This sparked national pride and resentment across Canada, leading to widespread protests and a boycott of American goods. Provinces like Quebec and Nova Scotia removed American-made alcohol from store shelves in direct response to the U.S. tariffs. This boycott wasn't just symbolic, it had real economic consequences. Canadian tourists, who have long been a significant source of revenue for the U.S. tourism industry, reduced their visits to the States. This decline could result in billions of dollars in lost revenue for the U.S. economy. The alcohol industry, in particular, was hit hard, with Canadian consumers opting for domestic products instead of American imports. The bourbon industry in states like Kentucky, which depends on Canadian buyers, saw a notable decline as its products were removed from Canadian shelves. As tensions between the U.S. and Canada deepen, their economic relationship stands at a critical crossroads. With both trade and tourism industries already feeling the strain, the future of this vital partnership hangs in the balance. Trump's tariff policies have created a rift that's hard to ignore, and Canada's boycott is a clear signal of resistance. The pressing question now is whether the U.S. and Canada can resolve these issues and restore their once strong ties, or whether this marks the beginning of a prolonged crisis in their economic and political relationship. These tensions go beyond economics. They represent a battle over national pride, sovereignty, and the future of North America's role in the global economy. As both nations face challenges and opportunities, the path forward will be pivotal, not just for the U.S. and Canada, but for the future of the entire continent.